If you're looking for homeschool sanity, welcome. I'm Dr. Melanie Wilson, Christian psychologist turned homeschool mom and curriculum author. But I was once so disorganized, I thought I had to quit homeschooling and stop having kids. Now, by the grace of God, I have 6 homeschool graduates. Whether we're discussing parenting, productivity, or practical tips, I pray that this episode is just what you need for happy, healthy homeschooling. Hey homeschoolers, what's your story? Do you have a sad tale to tell or an inspiring one? In this episode, I want to talk about how we can not only rewrite our stories to give God the glory, but we can teach our kids to do the same. Before we jump in, I want to thank our sponsor, Route 60, the Biblical Highway movie.
Support is from TBN. Weaving its way through the heart of the Holy Land is a well-worn path that once felt the footsteps of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, King David, and Jesus. Host David Friedland and Mike Pompeo take a sacred journey of hope along Route 60, the Biblical Highway. Experience the land of the Bible as you've never seen it. In theaters September 18th and 19th. Route 60, the Biblical Highway. Information at route60.movie. That's route60.movie.
Now for rewriting our stories. One sad story you may recall is about a boy whose father was guilty of favoritism. He sent his favorite son to check on how his brothers were doing in the family business. But so jealous were the brothers of this favored son that they decided to kill him. One brother convinced them not to kill him, but foolishly walked away and allowed the rest to sell the boy to human traffickers. Although the young man worked hard and did not sexually harass his boss's wife, he was thrown into jail anyway. Then, though he helped a fellow prisoner and asked the man to return the favor when he was released, he was forgotten for years. And this is why the young man never accomplished anything in his life. I'm sure you know that's not how the story ends. But it's also a narrow perspective on what happened to Joseph. We can unknowingly write a similar tale about our lives. We were raised by unbelievers, neglected, abused, bullied, poor, had an undiagnosed condition, were taken advantage of by bosses, friends, men, had a difficult marriage, dealt with infertility, struggled to teach children with special needs, had an unsupportive family or church, had a spouse lose a job, had to cope with an addiction, mental illness, or a chronic medical condition, had a prodigal child, or experienced numerous losses and loneliness. I may not have mentioned the heartache in your story in that list, but I know I've listed many of my own challenges and those others I know have experienced and are experiencing. I also know for sure that we are not in charge of the plot. God is. But we are both the protagonist and the editor in our hero's journey. Rewriting our story can help us live happier ever after, not necessarily happily ever after. Doing this revision in my own life story has made a profound difference. So I want to share how you can start rewriting your story today. The beginning of the hero's journey is always a nice, peaceful life. You may be thinking that you've never had that. In that case, what you had was a desire for it. You wanted a typical, happy Christian family. Instead, you got the equivalent of a call to adventure in the hero's journey. You started with a dysfunctional family or a personal challenge. Others of us felt that we had a quote-unquote normal life when the call came. The call to adventure for you and me was probably not, let's get the gold from the dragon's lair. It was probably something out of your control, as it was for Joseph. Joseph had jealous brothers, but he likely didn't see the violence coming. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made his dream of superiority public. When the call to adventure is a challenge that we don't want, we resist, we deny, we try to make it go away. We may get depressed when our efforts fail to change things. This is our refusal of the call. Joseph cried and begged his brothers not to sell him as a slave. But on an adventure he went, and so did we. I believe that every one of us will get the undesirable call. Jesus said, "In this world, you will have trouble." It's a given. There aren't vast numbers of people living a trouble-free existence, regardless of what the antagonist whispers in our ear. We all have trouble, and we don't get to choose the form it takes. The next part of the hero's journey is where we have to focus our editing. It's the mentor. This is the wise guide who encourages us, helps us, and doesn't leave us. Jesus is our mentor. He was there when we got the unwanted call to adventure. Because he promises never to leave us or forsake us, we know he has been with us the whole time. But some of us leave out that critical mentor stage of the hero's journey. We tell our story as though we've been going it alone. Genesis 39, verse 23 tells us that while Joseph was unjustly imprisoned, the Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. The next major aspect of the hero's journey we want to flesh out in our story is the ordeal. During this time, we develop allies and confront enemies. When we are on the journey, it's easy to become fixated on the enemies and the obstacles. We forget about our allies. Joseph's brothers, Potiphar's wife, and eventually Potiphar himself were enemies. But Joseph also had allies for the journey. Potiphar was initially an ally, as was the prison warden and finally Pharaoh. As we rewrite our stories, we want to recall that God provided us with people who helped us along the way, even if they didn't end up being our best friends. After the ordeal comes the return. When the hero returns, he is changed. Joseph had so grown in humility through his ordeal that he told Pharaoh only God could interpret his dream. He returned to a relationship with his brothers without taking revenge on them. Joseph's journey earned himself the reward of power, prestige, and being reunited with his family. But it also earned his descendants a double portion of inheritance in Israel. Perhaps the greatest result of a successful hero's journey is seeing God working good in it. In Exodus 50:20, we read Joseph saying, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people." What strikes me about Joseph's statement is that he sees beyond himself and even beyond his family to what God was doing for his people. We can rewrite our return so that we see the same. 2 Corinthians 1:4 reads, "He comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others." When they are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us. I refused many a call to adventure, but when I returned from the ordeal of them, I was able to speak and write about it and comfort others. I have grown in humility and faith as well. How have you grown? And how has God used your trouble and you to comfort others? This week, discuss the hero's journey with respect to a book you've read, your own life, and your kids' experiences. Talk about how a change in perspective can help you live happier ever after. Thanks again to my sponsor for this episode, the Route 60 movie. To find a link to it and the show notes, visit homeschoolsanity.com/rewrite. Have a happy homeschool week. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I hope something you heard was encouraging. If you have a personal question to follow up, don't hesitate to message me. I'm at Homeschool Sanity on social media. Be sure to check my free resource page at homeschoolsanity.com/resource and find sanity-saving curriculum at funtolearnbooks.com. This has been a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.